And it's only natural to follow the path of least resistance. But I was thinking, have you ever seen a waterfall? And this is what they do. And they cascade down a mountain, and it follows a path of least resistance. It moves around the rocks and roots and obstacles, and basically it works well for water that's trying to increase its level somewhere. But it's not so good if we want to increase in our life. We have to follow the path of most resistance most of the time. Now, typically people follow their well-worn path of what's familiar and comfortable. It's okay. It doesn't matter. And many take the path of least resistance, yet deep down they think about improving. They want to better their lot in life, but they just keep doing things the same. So no matter how much we want our life to be easy, which we all do, growth never starts off that way. Never starts off that way. Change requires change. And if we want to grow, if we want to change, if we want to plan on building our bodies, our minds, building anything notable in life, we got to be willing to take the path of most resistance. Here's a quote: "Progress is impossible without change, and those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything." George Bernard Shaw. See, to change, you have to change our minds. You've got to do something. Now I'm going to hit a topic called progressive resistance. And if you ever went to a trainer, this is what they do. And it's a health or an exercise term that denotes a concept of building physical strength, especially in a weak or injured body part, through lifting a progressively heavier weight. It's not just going into the gym and getting under 500 pounds and then dropping it on your chest. See, it takes work to get there. See, basically, progressive resistance is pushing oneself just a little bit more each week in order to reach their fitness goals. You run a little bit further, a little bit faster, whatever. You lift a little bit more weight. Progressive resistance works in every single endeavor of life, be it health, fitness, education, finance, even romance. You see, even in our spiritual growth, push more to grow more. Push a little more, grow a little bit more. Just a little bit at a time. Like I say so many times, do something every day to better your situation. Want to make more money? You're going to have to do something every day to figure that out. You want better health? Figure it out. Do something every day to better the situation. There's always something we can do. Each week we add a little more weight. We challenge ourselves to do it just a little bit more. Take on a little bit more. Do things a little bit better. Push ourselves to last a little bit longer. We even might add a little intensity. Push yourself to excel incrementally, a little bit at a time. Now, trainers have developed intricate formulas to help people improve their fitness. And they always build from a foundation of proper form. First, you learn how to do it, and then you start with a light weight or a run or whatever, and then you work up from there. The same works in anything. That makes me think of that Texas boy who bought his first chainsaw. And he went to go clean up the fence line on his little ranch. And he took it out, the first day, took it out of its box, and he was very disappointed with the results. Super disappointed. So he took it back to the dealer, and the service technician grabbed it and he primed it and keyed the throttle and pulled the cord and and the Texas guy said, "What's that noise?" He had a chainsaw, but he didn't know how to use it. Chainsaw is a useless thing if you're trying to saw down trees with just a saw. You see, what's the noise? Progressive resistance gets us ready for the path of most resistance. Now we're getting to the spiritual side of this in a minute here. Here's another quote. The vision must be followed by the venture. It's not enough to stare up the stairs. We must step up the stairs. And that's Vance Havner, and he's an American clergyman. You know, don't just stare up at the stairs. Like, have you ever done the incline over here? You know, I mean, you know, it's, you know, if you stand at the bottom, well, it doesn't, you know, you're not going to get to the top. And then you get partway up and you think you're at the top and you hit what's called a false summit. And you realize, I still have a third of the way to go and I'm already wiped out. Well, you know, it's, you know, in life, there's always going to be false summits. You think you made it, you think everything's going good, and all of a sudden, oh, there's so much more to do. Any parent knows that. There's always more to do. You think, oh, I can't wait for my kid to start crawling. Well, now you got to chase him around. I can't wait for the kid to start walking. Then you really got to chase him around and have all the gates up and everything. And then, oh boy, what a relief when they start driving. Then it's like, where the heck are they? You know, you know, cell phones help a little bit nowadays if the kids would actually answer them. Then they leave home and you still think about it. It's always like that. You know, but you grow with your child. You grow as being a parent. When I had my first child, I'd never changed a diaper. I'd never held a baby, ever. Isn't that weird? Never had. I didn't know anything. What's this thing? Little pink thing, you know, that looked like the Michelin Man, you know. Just rolls of fat. You see, the legend of Milo. Have you ever heard of a guy named Milo of Croton? And he hailed from a city in southern Italy about 500, 550 BC. And Milo grew to become one of the most famous Olympic wrestlers of all time. And he was a 6-time Olympic champ. He won 7 crowns at the Pythian Games in Delphi. Remember when we studied about Delphi, the Oracle of Delphi? And the 10 victories at the Isthmian Games and 9 wins at the Nemean Games. Milo was a 5-time winner of all 4 games during the same cycle. That would be like being a Grand Slam tennis player 5 times, or winning the biggest golf championships, the whole set of them, or if you're a horse, the Triple Crown 5 times. No one had ever done that before. And probably no one's ever done that since. This Milo did it. In all, he won 32 competitions. And Milo dominated the sport of wrestling for about 24 years. How did he do this? Well, Milo amassed his amazing strength using the principle of progressive resistance. And he started lifting small weights and added a little bit more each day. He took the incremental path of most resistance. And legend has it, when Milo was a young man, he was given a baby calf, a baby ox. And every day he would pick this ox up and he'd put it on his shoulder when it was a baby. And every day he would walk around with this thing. The next day he'd go back out, put his head under, pick up this calf. Well, as this calf grew, it grew into a youth weighing 100 pounds, then 200 pounds, 300 pounds. Within a couple of years, he was lifting over 1,000 pounds every day. And one time he walked, the legend has it, that one day he walked into the Olympics, into the Olympic Stadium. Now, wrestling was the big event. He walked into this Olympic Stadium carrying a full-grown oxen, and then he threw it down. What do you think his competitors thought? incremental. It was progressive growth. And so we all want everything to happen right now. Our health, our wealth, our relationships, a better marriage, whatever it is. Our kids to act a certain way. But it's progressive. It's a little bit at a time. Like in a relationship, you tell your wife how beautiful she is as many times a day as you can tell her. You know, you tell your husband how proud he makes of you. You do this all day long, and I guarantee your love life will be through the roof. Because you'll be thinking about that person. But it works in anything. It's progressive. It's incremental. It's a path of most resistance. It's hard work. It's hard work. Really nothing good comes easy except for Holy Spirit. You know, that's about it. You know, that was an easy one. You make Jesus Lord, believe God raised from the dead, boom, you're born again. It's easy. You see, our school system is built on the premise of this path of most resistance. You start off in kindergarten. You take a nap, you color, you learn your ABCs. You're learning to read now, probably doing calculus, nowadays, not when I was in kindergarten. And and then it's first grade, and then second, and then you go on. Then you're in sixth grade, and then you're junior high or middle school, then high school, then college, and maybe graduate school. I mean, it's a lot. And then when you get a job, you still have to go for certifications all the time, and you got to keep up in your certs, taking all these courses so you can stay in that job and advance in there. It never stops. That's incremental education. Incremental growth. Here's a quote. Do the difficult things while they are easy, and do the great things while they are small. A journey of 1,000 miles must begin with a single step. That's Lao Tzu, an ancient Chinese philosopher. About the same time that Milo was winning the Olympics, this quote was said. Sort of crazy when you think of time. 500 BC, it's a long time. The next topic is get started by taking baby steps. Now, I looked up baby steps just to see what the dictionary would say, and they said it's the initial stage in a long or challenging process. Baby steps. Have you ever seen a baby just first start walking? They take 2 or 3 steps, and then they fall down, or they fall into your arms. Before you know it, they're running. I was at a house one time where these people had a 9-month-old baby, and this baby didn't walk, it ran. And I asked the mom, I said, my kids weren't even doing it, we're just still crawling at 9 months. And she said, well, it's the youngest of all the siblings, and it does it to protect itself. It had to run to keep away, because they were all just incrementally older than that one. They would pick on the baby. So baby steps, the initial stage in a long or challenging process. You ever had to take on a new job and you feel like you're asked to drink from a fire hose? I know somebody in a new job right now, it's like, yeah, I want to drink. It's like way too much information too fast. But then in a year, it's like, I don't know why that was hard at all. Milo could have never started his training by picking up a full-grown ox. So what makes you think you're going to handle your marriage, your situation, your health by picking up the ox? Pick up the calf. Do something small. Think small to believe big, like I taught a few weeks ago. Think small. Do something every day. Work your way up. Noah, he incrementally worked on his calling to save the world. Imagine being asked to save the world. I mean, people sing about it, but imagine that's your job. Noah, you must save the world. Build an ark. Like Bill Cosby said, what's an ark? You know. But it started by chopping down one tree. He worked on the thing for 100 years. He had to pay for this thing out of his own pocket. Imagine being asked to save the world on your own dime. That's basically how it was. And God supplied it. God will supply your need. Because he knows your effect on people. You do amazing things for people. You know, think about how Jonah, after he was eaten by a large fish, swallowed, head wrapped in seaweed, you know, in the belly of that thing, then being vomited out 3 days and 3 nights later on the eastern shore of the Mediterranean, getting raised from the dead, and then he brushed off the chunks or whatever, and he walked 400 miles to Nineveh and did what God had asked him to do. And there he spoke the word, and he saved the entire population of that city. You see, our path may be circuitous. It may not go. We may make the wrong decision at times. We're going to make the wrong decision at times. You're going to second guess yourself. Jonah did. But he still ended up doing what he was supposed to do. Just keep moving, and you'll eventually get where you want to go. Or where you're supposed to go. Just keep moving, one step after another. Like desk work. You ever had a pile of desk work and 400 unanswered emails? And then you don't want to sit at that desk, and you don't want to look at your computer. But when you get it done, when you get through all the emails, and when you get your desk cleared off, how do you feel? You feel great. That's how you feel in anything in life when you've accomplished that task, but it's one piece of paper at a time, one thing at a time. Do you know that even Jesus Christ grew? Jesus Christ, I mean, of course, he was born, he was perfect. But he grew. A perfect person doesn't mean a person who knows everything. He grew. You know, like Luke 2:40 says, and the child grew and waxed strong in spirit, filled with wisdom, and the grace of God was upon him. He grew. Even a perfect person had to incrementally work on his growth. What about us? Because you read a book or took a class or took a seminar or go to a specific building, that may or may not cut it. You may need more. Sometimes you need to connect with a different style at times. There's people who like my style, and there's people who don't. It's the way it is. Sometimes I don't like my own style. You know, you think you're going to enjoy, you know, you think you can love everybody, you know, just the way they are, but you don't even like yourself just the way you are sometimes. It takes work. It's a lifetime of work to deal with this soul. You know, he had to work hard to build his strength. Go to Ephesians chapter 4. I think you'll like this. And we're talking about growth here. We're talking about baby steps. We're talking about the path of most resistance. We don't want to have to do that. We want life to be easy. Why can't it just be easy? Well, I was thinking this morning about, you ever seen the cosmonauts or the astronauts after they've been up for a year or many months on the space station? Sometimes you have to carry them. They've lost all their muscle strength because there's no resistance. Or a kid who had his arm in a cast. You ever seen when that cast comes off? It's just a little skinny arm. He lost all the muscle strength, or she. You know, it's the same thing if without resistance, a plane can't fly. You have to have resistance under the wings. The prop has to be able to bite into something, to move. It takes resistance to live and to thrive and to grow. Verse 14 of Ephesians 4. Now remember, Ephesians was written, some Christians call it the greatest epistle. You know, they call it the Breakfast of Champions. It's a great book. But it was written when Christianity was already at its decline. This was written, Christianity had reached its peak in Acts 19:20. So mightily grew the word of God and prevailed. Well, just soon after that is when Ephesians was written. When it says these things were ended, that's about the time Ephesians was written. It was during a time where people were starting to leave Christianity. They were going back to their old ways. It's been 30 years. When's this Christ guy coming back? You know, they're looking at their what do you call those kind of clocks with the shadow? What do you call those things? Sundials. Looking at their sundials. Now, I've been waiting a long time for this thing. They got their Inca calendar, you know, and they're trying to figure all this stuff out. Well, Ephesians is incredible. And here it says that we henceforth be no more children, tossed to and fro, and carried about with every wind of doctrine. This word child here means like a baby. It's a baby. Like a baby, if you handed a baby around, can it stop you from doing that? The baby. Only the parent can, right? Yeah. You ever seen a baby just get handed around the room? And the mother's like, especially a first-time mom. A mom with a second child is like, keep passing it. Give me a break. But the first baby's different. We henceforth be no more children, tossed to and fro and carried about with every wind of doctrine, by the sleight of men and cunning craftiness, whereby they lie in wait to deceive. And here's the thing. But speaking the truth in love may grow up into him in all things, even the head, which is Christ. So here it's talking about growing up by speaking the truth in love. Now, of course, a lot of Christians think that means go out there and knocking on doors and annoying people at the mall and the airports. That's not necessarily what this is talking about. See, what it's really saying is time to grow up and stop being a breastfed baby with no power over who picks you up and what they feed you. It's time to take control of your own thought life. If the doctor says, you can't be healed, ma'am, you think, I can too. Like I say so many times, you know, people say, well, I have an incurable disease. And I said, well, are you dead? And they go, well, what do you mean? No, I'm not dead. I said, well, you can't be sicker than dead. And God has raised people from the dead. I think that's the worst sickness is death, right? I mean, that's a tough one. And there's people who are even today in hospitals raised from the dead. You slap the paddles on them, they do something. I mean, it happens all the time. But the point is, it's time to grow up. And see, if we're so used to just listening to what everybody's taught us, our mother, our father, our grandparent, our preacher, our priest, our whatever, our coaches, it doesn't mean they're right. We've been blown about our whole life by the doctrine of the world. Like I said last week, if you were raised in a different family, you would be a different person, a totally different person. You ever seen a child that was raised poorly and then they go live with an aunt or an uncle on a ranch or something, and that kid changes? It's because it's a totally different environment and they expect different things out of that child. It's just different doctrine, a different thought process. It's all it is. If we keep being told, it's like that example I've used so many times. Josephine and I had a friend who lived with us, and for a year or so. And this guy told me 3 times that year that every male, that his mom and his aunt and his sisters had told him that every male in their family dies before they're 55. And I'd always say, good thing you know the word. And then he moved out of our house and went to stay somewhere else. He was going to get married. And don't you know, he died when he was 54. He believed the words of his mother and his sister and his aunts more than he believed the word of God. Because it was drilled into his head. It's so much in there. And I think if you can choose the year of your death, you can choose a year of your deliverance. You just got to keep putting it in your head. Put it in your head. Drill it in your head. I'm going to get a job. I'm going to get that job. I have this job. They just don't know it yet. And then pretty soon you get it. It works. You know, I was at a party one time when I was very young in the Word. And this, we're just talking to people, Josephine and I, and a few weeks later, a girl walked up to me who was at that party, and she said, thanks for healing me. And I said, I don't remember praying for you. She said, oh, you didn't pray for me. She said, I had cancer, and I told God that I wanted to get healed during that party, but I wasn't going to ask anybody. And she said, you put your hand on my back, and I had a cancer in my spine. And she said it got hot, and then the tumor went down. I went to my oncologist, and I was cancer free. I saw her a year later. She said she was still cancer free. I didn't do anything. She believed that somebody was. I just happened to be the one who touched her. You see, I mean, and that was back when cancer was scary, back in the 70s. You know, you get cancer, you die. You know, I mean, it's a lot. Now it's like, take this pill and we'll see you on Friday. You know, it's not, I don't want to make light of it, but you get the point. I want to read, this word speaking the truth in love. I got to say that. I got to explain that. Simply means live true. It doesn't really mean speaking the truth. It's just living true. Live the truth. Live true. You know, get a conviction, choose a direction, and run. Do something. And if you start running the wrong way, turn around and run the right way. But you got to start somewhere. You know, pick up the truth every day. Put it on your shoulders a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And move like Milo. Here's another quote. The first step towards success is taken when you refuse to be a captive of the environment in which you first find yourself. Mark Kane, an American climate scientist. It's refuse to be a captive of the environment in which you first find yourself. Okay, I don't feel well, or I'm broke. Whatever environment I find myself in, he could leave that open if he wants. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Well, you get the point. We all find ourselves in a bad situation sometimes. Just the way life is. It happens. But refuse to be captivated by that negative environment. I'm going to read Ephesians 4:14 through 16 from the Message. No prolonged infancies among us, please. Will not tolerate babes in the woods, small children who are an easy mark for imposters. God wants us to grow up, to know the whole truth and to tell it in love, like Christ in everything. We take our lead from Christ, who is the source of everything we do. He keeps us in step with each other. His very breath and blood flow through us, nourishing us so that we will grow up healthy in God, robust in love. I mean, just think about the blood of Christ, so to speak. Christ in you just coursing through your veins. How healing might that make you think? Just perfect. blood. The Bible says we have Christ in us, doesn't it? Well, just think of it in the physical side. Think of him just flowing through you. Wouldn't he want to help us the best he possibly could? Sure. Get started on your journey of self-improvement by getting started. You see, take the necessary baby steps each week or each day and add a little bit more to our plate. That's the only way we can grow. Otherwise, we're going to begin to deteriorate. The easy life isn't the best life. It took people a lot of work to live the easy life. You see, it took a long time for him to be strong enough to carry an ox. Then he could. Milo. Our problem may seem insurmountable, but so was Mount Everest at one time. How long have people been on Earth? It wasn't until some guy named Edmund Hillary and his sidekick Tenzing Norgay, took on Everest one step at a time. Take on your life one step at a time. Quote, when it's obvious that the goals cannot be reached, don't adjust the goals, adjust the action steps. Confucius. Remember, truth can come from a lot of different angles. That's why I use crazy quotes sometimes. Now, sharing the load. Sharing the load. We're going to be able to help others as we continue to strengthen ourselves. Galatians 6, and we're going to read verses 2 through 5. And here it says, bear ye one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. Now, what was the law of Christ? Anybody know? It's a 4-letter word, starts with L, ends with E. Love. Yeah. Love. It's the law of Christ. Bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. The word bear means to lift or to carry, not just put up with. The word burden simply means helping another move the weight. You ever had a trainer at a gym and they spot you? You're trying to lift more weight than you ever had, and then they spot you. You have a spotter, and then they'll make sure that thing doesn't fall down on you. I've been in a gym before where a guy had it trapped on his neck. I was right next to him, and he looked over at me. He had like 200 pounds. It wasn't all that much. On the bar, and I think, little help, So I just jumped up and helped him pick the thing up, and put it back on the rack, But that's how it's a little help over here. And in weightlifting, if someone's really going to try to beat their last week's best, they need a spotter to help them safely lift that final rep. Or really, they'll never really accomplish as much. You can never accomplish as much alone as you could with help. It's just the way God set life up to be. A good trainer or spotter or coach or teacher will help anybody excel. And they'll push their trainees to excel. And this is something I didn't realize until this week. Did you know that 2 oxen yoked together, they got the yoke around their necks, can pull more than double the combined weight of 2 single oxen could pull alone? Isn't that crazy? Let's say one oxen can pull 2,000 pounds on a sled, and this other oxen can pull 2,000 pounds on a sled. But so that's 4,000 pounds. But together they could probably pull 5,000 pounds. Why? I don't know. It's just the way life is sometimes. There's strength in numbers. That's the beauty of a family. You have somebody you can go to. Sometimes somebody who drive you nuts. Sometimes that'll make you stronger too, because you learn what not to do. But Verse 3, for if a man think himself to be something, look at me, when he is nothing, he deceiveth himself. But let every man prove his own work, and then shall he have rejoicing in himself alone and not in another. Let every man prove his own work. Rejoice in yourself and not in another. Sometimes we can get so lost in other people's lives that we don't take care of our own. I think that can be hard for a parent at times, or a sibling, taking care of a needy, brother or sister. I get it. But we gotta put ourselves to the test if we plan on growing. And I think, what are we made of? That's how we tell. And I'm not trying to promote weightlifting or long distance running. I could care less, what you do or I care, but it's up to you what you want to do. The point being here is taking on a little bit more of whatever you need so that you can grow as a parent, as a human, as a child of God. But if I could open you up and look in you, I'd find all good stuff. It's all good stuff inside of you. And that's all God sees, is all the good stuff. God loves us. There's no darkness. God can't see the bad. He doesn't hang on to that. And if we want to be more God-like, so to speak, then we have to stop seeing the negative and start looking at the positive. Just hang on to that. But you can't just do it with yourself. And this is where it's hard. When you've been burned by somebody, the right thing to do is to either confront it, forgive them, or forget about it. But if you just keep bringing up that negative, you just keep reopening that wound over and over and over again, it's a poison that you feed yourself, unforgiveness. You ever accomplished a long and difficult task and then turned around and looked at this thing and were you rewarded by that? Sure. It could be at a job. You could have built a house, did your yard finally, redecorated, built something. I know we built a mantle at our house. And it was my first project of ever doing more fine woodworking before. And now every day I like to just stand there and look at it. It's silly. In a year I won't notice it anymore. But right now it's fun to see because it took a lot of work and I just did it a little bit at a time as I had time after work to work on this thing. When you got your hard-earned degree or that certification, where you made the team or your band was picked, by a label, where you finally lost that weight. You finally got off the CPAP machine. You willed your body to be healed. Verse 5 says, for every man shall bear his own burden. And the word burden means a load or a cargo, or it's a full invoice. It's what that boat will hold. It's a cargo that was placed on there. You have to deal with you. Whatever has been placed in your head, you have to deal with. Some of us were raised well. Some of us are raised not so well. Some of us had people treat us good as a kid. Some people were treated poorly as a kid. Unfortunately, that's a life. That's the lot we were dealt. But you have to deal with your own cargo. You keep your own ship afloat. You get good at that, and it's going to be a lot easier to help somebody else keep their ship floating. Put forth the time and energy to help others, always knowing that we need to deal with our own life, our own cargo, our own baggage, our own situation. You ever gone backpacking with a mixed group? Men, women, different ages, all that stuff. Who ends up carrying the heaviest load? I mean, it's like, it's usually the person, either the dumbest or the strongest. Yet I digress. And I remember the first time hiking to the top of Pikes Peak when I'd first moved to Colorado Springs. I did it with a group. And we weren't backpacking, but everybody had little day packs on. And so I did it with this group. And by the time we got to Timberline, I had another woman's pack tied on to mine, and I was carrying another two guys' water bottles because they were too exhausted. I'd never done this before. And the weird thing is nobody ever asked to help me because all they could do is just put one foot in front of the other to get to the top. And that's how life is sometimes. Sometimes it's just the load's too heavy by yourself, and you got to have somebody help you. And sometimes you're strong enough or dumb enough, no, I shouldn't say that, to carry somebody else's load. And that's just the way it is too. It's okay. I sort of felt like a pack mule. In fact, every time I go backpacking, I feel like that pack mule. I end up carrying the potatoes and the apples and the ropes and the shovels, and it's like, my God. But that's the way it goes. So here's a quote: "Probable impossibilities are to be preferred to improbable possibilities." Aristotle. It's a little heady there. Here's another quote by a coach: "It's not the load that breaks you down, it's the way you carry it." Lou Holtz. It's because you ever notice when you're backpacking, you keep adjusting it. You put it on your shoulders, and then sometimes you raise your shoulders and you tighten your hip strap. Then it's on your hips, and you keep changing it. Or you're carrying one bucket and you'll keep changing hands. It's how you carry that load. I found a lot of times it's easier to carry two buckets than one. It's probably better for you. See, so here's a bit of urban wisdom I thought of this morning. Never wear an orange t-shirt to Home Depot unless you plan on helping people. I have this prison orange t-shirt Josephine bought me, and I went to Home Depot in it one time. Sir, sir. Yeah, go to aisle 16. You start sending them all over the store. You have to get that at Lowe's. No. Yeah. See, the same Greek word for burden in verse 5 is used in Luke 11, describing people who push religion over truth. And this is that doctrines that we were talking about in Ephesians there. People want to push their thoughts of truth instead of truth. And we're just full of it. It's hard to tell what's real or what's not. It's real hard. I mean, God says that we've been given prosperity and health. We have a prosperous journey. It's already made for us. Yet sometimes we look at ourselves and I think, well, I don't see that. But that's what God sees. So if we can just figure out how to see things the way God sees them, which is through the filter of truth, man, how much prettier will our life be? How much fatter will our wallet be? How much healthier will our body be? It all starts with thinking. Luke 11:46. I'm going to read this from the Net Bible. But Jesus replied, "Woe to you experts in religious law as well. You load people down with burdens difficult to bear. Yet you yourselves refuse to touch the burdens with even one of your fingers." Jesus Christ didn't really cut much slack when it came to lazy doctrine. You got to work to find the truth. I mean, everybody has things that are, just think of the doctrine of life, the truth. Remember, living the truth, speaking the truth in love, just truthing it. Just be the truth. It's hard because we feel bad, but the Bible says we've already been healed. But what's true? The truth is we've been healed. We have to hang on to that. That's hard to do. You don't have any money. You just lost your job. Yet, God says He'll prosper us on our journey through life. I'll give you exceeding abundantly above all that ye ask or think. No good thing will I withhold from them that walk uprightly. I mean, all these wonderful verses. He'll supply all our need according to His riches and glory. He owns the universe. Amazing. See, Jesus' view on adding, here's Jesus' view on adding responsibilities on people. And it's Matthew 11:30. And He says, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. See, my yoke, your connection with me. Let's talk about Him being yoked to us. Remember like the two oxens? Imagine pulling with the Christ. You think he could carry a pretty big load? You think He can help you carry your load? Your backpack, your water? I'll guarantee. He's still around. He's not way up somewhere not doing anything. He's working tirelessly. Circumnavigating the globe daily. Boom, boom, boom. Just looking for needs. He's doing stuff. Directing things. People think, oh, the devil, he's really got my number. Well, you keep thinking that. You'll manifest that. Oh, he has all these devil spirits around. Sure they are. But, there's 2/3 more good angels than there are bad. If the devil took 1/3 of the angels, when he fell, there's 2/3 out there that still help. They're ministers to those who shall be heirs of salvation. We're all heirs of salvation. We all, the same inheritance that Jesus Christ has, we have. Isn't that crazy? See, my yoke, your connection with me is easy, it's good, it's kind, and will only make you stronger. You start pulling with me, boy, you're going to get strong, Jesus is saying. He says, any burden, any extra weight I ask you to share, I take it on too. I'm yoked to you. I'm tied to you. Cargo in that day and time was typically moved by ship or boat. So think about guys rowing here instead of oxen, guys with things around their neck. That's a ridiculous thought. A harness on a man. Think about Jesus pulling an oar on this side and you pulling an oar on that side. Well, then the boat can go straight, right? If you both put in the same amount of strength. Yeah. You see. Any extra weight I ask you to share is going to take light rowing because we're in this boat together. Basically what he's saying in practical terms. The path of most resistance begins with small but ever-increasing weights and is best handled with the help of another. Get the help you need, folks. If you need to go to a doctor, go to a doctor. If you need to go to a counselor, go to a counselor. If you need to go to a friend, go to a friend. Do something to help your situation. Ecclesiastes 4, 9 and 10. 2 are better than 1. You know this verse. Because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him that is alone when he falleth, for he hath not another to lift him up. I remember coming back down the mountain on the Pikes Peak Marathon, and I fell. I'd never fallen before. And I just tumbled. I started rolling down this steep part of this trail. And then as fast as my son was there was two other men that all helped me back to my feet, because I was sort of stunned for a second. Am I okay? You start taking account of your whole body. And then, like I said before, that one guy said, "Are you hurt or are you embarrassed?" I said, "Well, I'm embarrassed." He said, "You'll get over that a lot faster." Then he took off. Pew. And so we make possible the impossible. And I'm going to move through a few verses here a little quick, but like Luke 18:27, it says, "And he said, the things which are impossible with men are possible with God." The things which are impossible with men are possible with God. So if your situation seems impossible, with God it's not. Hebrews 11:6 says, "But without faith, faith is believing, it's conviction. It's a full color picture knowing. It's like having something before you have it. But without faith, without that pure conviction, it's impossible to please." And the word "him" is in italics. It's not even in the text. To please. The word please means to be totally gratified. You're already pleasing to God. He chose you before the foundation of the world, even knowing that you did that one thing. You see, God chose you knowing that you did that thing. Or in my case, those things. We all do stuff. But without faith, it's impossible to please him, or to please, or to be totally gratified. For he that cometh to God. Now just think about that. If you leave off the word "him," this means a whole different thing. Take it home. He that cometh to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. Without believing, it's impossible to be totally gratified. But we're going to God with the full knowledge that he will reward us if we diligently seek him. How do you diligently seek God? Do you just climb the mountain? Do you run around with like a chicken with his head cut off? You seek God by living truth, like we said earlier. He's being the truth. Thinking truth. Thinking what is true and real and right. What works. Not what anybody has told me. What does the word say? See, to diligently seek is to search out, to carve, or to crave, should I say, to crave, excuse me. Or it can be translated to demand of God. How many of you think you can demand something of God? God, I want it, and I want it now. Well, if he said I already gave it to you, then it's easy to demand. It's already yours. Go get it. Go get it. This doesn't mean a cocky demand. It's just an attitude. Like a baby. When they're hungry, what do they want? Food. How do they get it usually? They cry. Right? Yeah. And they're going to do whatever it takes. You see, they think about when your kid first started driving. They're "Oh, mother, would you like me to take the trash out today? What do you want?" Well, is there anything you want me? What do you want? Well, I want to use the car. I want to go to the mall. Why do you want to go to the mall? Who are you going to the mall with? How long are you going to be at the mall? What are you going to do at the mall? Well, the cool thing, God already knows all that stuff. And he still supplied it. Napoleon Bonaparte said, "Impossible is a word to be found only in the dictionary of fools." He's a little guy, but he thinks you're a fool if you think that something's impossible. Because in his mind, nothing was. Remember what I said the other day, billionaires, they feel superior to every situation. It's an attitude. That's why they have that money, because they feel that way. They don't feel that way because they have the money. There's a difference. See, we're going to see results of our prayers as clearly as we see God. How clearly do you see God? Here's another one by Lou Holtz. Virtually nothing is impossible in this world if you just put your mind to it and maintain a positive attitude. Here's one. See if you can figure out who said this one. It was impossible to get a conversation going. Everybody was talking too much. Yogi Berra. It was impossible to get a conversation going. Everyone was talking too much. He must have been Italian. And just try to talk around an Italian dinner table. You see, as we push ourselves to take the path of most resistance, eventually nothing will seem impossible. And so really, I think you get the point here. There was the same word, the word for impossible is the same word as in Acts 14, verse 8, where it says, and there was a certain man of Lystra, impotent, in his feet, being a cripple from his mother's womb who had never walked. So what would his legs probably look like? Just bones and skin, right? Now, this word impotent in the Greek is the word impossible. This guy, his whole life, had thought it impossible that he could walk. Impossible. Verse 9, the same heard Paul speak, who steadfastly beholding him and perceiving that he had the faith or believing to be healed, said with a loud voice, stand upright on thy feet. And he leaped and walked. That's all he said. He just told him, stand up and walk. And when the people saw what Paul had done, they lifted up their voices, saying in the speech of Lycaonia, the gods are come down to us in the likeness of men. Paul was preaching to the unbelievers, and this guy who had never walked, he came out of the womb lame. Imagine how hard a life that was for his family. And now all of a sudden he's walking. He stood up, he leaped and he walked. He stood up and boom. There's a lot of healing that goes on from just bone, just a bone with skin wrapped around it, muscles and all that. What can God do for you? This guy was impotent in his feet, but really he thought it impossible. It's the same word as impossible, impotent. It's impossible to walk until he heard a few words from a guy named Paul. A few words from you can change somebody's life. See, this man allowed Paul's words to speak louder to his heart than all the words that spoke to him through his whole life. Because Paul spoke truth. Arnold Schwarzenegger said, the mind is the limit. As long as the mind can envision the fact that you can do something, you can do it. As long as you really believe 100%. Sean Combs, Puff Daddy, I think, he said, if you dream and you believe, you can do it. And all these people who make it to the top know this stuff. See, little by little, a weightlifter, he'll add plate after plate after plate of weights, and before you know it, he or she is lifting all kinds of weight. Milo of Croton, every day he picked up that calf and he carried it on its shoulders. And by the time that calf was fully grown, he had grown enough incrementally to pick up a full-grown ox. And he won 32 championships during his lifetime. No one has ever done that at the Olympic level. And there was basically 4 Olympic-style competitions in that day and time. And 5 times he swept them. He was awesome. You are awesome. If we really want to grow, let's take the path of most resistance. God bless.